My audio processing ass did not go through years of speech therapy to deal with this nonsense. All right, that's it. I'm going to be using my disabled powers to send my dyslexia and audio processing issues to this person. Yeah, no warning. I don't F around. All right, so this comment reads, I checked some of your posts and I'm not the hyper-focused one. You haven't touched any of the real issues the country is facing. Just what's your agenda? This conversation is fruitless toodles. I think this is so funny because this is literally the same person who was commenting in my comment section about Doug Ford and what's happening with Service Ontario and Staples, and decided to push in JT, saying almost verbatim talking points by PP. And again, if you actually saw my post, you would see that I'm consistently talking about things that actually do impact Canadians. And I will continue to call out corrupt premiers for not doing their jobs and taking care of Canadian citizens. I usually talk about things that are going to affect Canadians and Ontarians like myself. I'm not going to lie and say that I don't have an agenda. I do. And my agenda includes holding premiers accountable and not just blaming everything on JT. As someone who talks about politics a lot, you will see this being spammed in your comment section all the time. Doesn't even matter who you're talking about, and if you're even talking about the provincial government or municipal governments versus talking about the federal government, these people will just PP all over your comment section. And as somebody who makes political content, I do see this all the time, so I'm not really surprised by it. One thing that always makes me giggle though is when the same people who constantly spam PP for PM or like PR for PM and all of that stuff reply to people in the comment thread with a sheep. It's like, I'm sorry, do you not see the irony there? Like, imagine typing out a little comment being like PR for PM like everybody else and then replying back to a reply with a sheep. I swear you could not make this shit up. Oh yes, this is true. Not only is Doug Ford going to be putting Service Ontario kiosks in Staples, he's also going to be putting these kiosks in Walmart as well. And according to Walmart, they are proud to be the one-stop shop for Canadians. I know it's a little late, but I wanted to take a minute to talk about the federal government denying the allegations in Gaza. In case you didn't know, South Africa, rightfully in my opinion, is calling out Israel for... Leaders around the world were asked to respond to this, and that includes JT, who supports the UN, but not necessarily the blank claim against Israel. And in my personal opinion, this is a new low for JT. I mean, besides the stuff we already know about him. History remembers. Of course, I'd like to get your opinion in the comments. Considering the subject matter, however, I personally am gonna request that people be kind. However, this is just my little friendly reminder that if America supports it, it's probably bad. After putting up the video I just stitched, I came across a Boots post talking about Ontario healthcare. And in the Boots video that I saw, he referenced this article by the Ottawa Citizen. And this article highlights how truly negatively Ford's provincial government has impacted the Ontario healthcare system. So much so that hospitals are actually having to take out high-interest loans in order to even function. The situation, according to Anthony Dale, is different than anything we are used to. Some hospitals have been forced to take out high-interest loans from banks, and others have had to dig into reserve funds to continue operating. Dealing with all of that while working in strained conditions due to the second highest wave of COVID-19. All while the provincial government wraps up pandemic funding. Not only that, thanks to Ford's Bill 124, hospital workers are also being underpaid throughout this whole thing. And this is Ford's plan from the beginning. I was going to reply to this in the comments, but I'm having a really bad dyslexic day, so I'm just going to do a video instead. So, in case you didn't know, Bill C-11 is just an act that is there to modernize our already existing regulations that we have on media here in Canada. Other versions of these regulations created the CRTC, which makes it so that radio stations are required to play Canadian music so that Canadian artists get seen and heard and paid. And that's what Bill C-11 is. It's just there to make sure that big corporations like YouTube, TikTok, etc. post Canadian content so that Canadians and other people can see us. I've gone over this a lot, and it's almost actually been a year since the bill has been enacted, and I've made a huge folder about it. A lot of the information in it might not be up to date because I did start making it when the bill was just coming out, and bills evolve and change. However, Call Me Chris was spreading misinformation when she was sharing her video about Bill C-11. Not only misinformation, but she was fear-mongering about this bill, and that's dangerous.
Some school districts have decided to respond to teacher and staff shortages with this. Take a moment. What do you find wrong with this picture? If you said white police officers who are untrained in education, unmasked during a deadly pandemic, with black students, armed authoritarian teachers is exactly what they wanted, right? How much learning do you think is really going on here? And this tweet is a prime example of propaganda.
So I'm in the middle of doing research for a TikTok that I'm going to be posting today. Yes, I actually do research for this stuff. And while doing research for a video that I'm going to be making, comparing Canada's response to refugees from Ukraine and Palestine, I couldn't find anywhere where it said if Palestinians, like Ukrainians, were exempt from paying biometric fees. If you don't know, to come to Canada from certain countries with certain visas, you have to do a biometric test, or you have to do a biometric screening where they take your fingerprints and stuff like that. And like I was saying, while I was doing research on the Ukraine side, I found that they don't have to pay for it, but I couldn't find anything on the Palestinian side saying that if they had to pay for it or not. Lo and behold, after spending 15 minutes on hold, I found out that apparently Palestinians still have to pay the $80 fee, even though they're also refugees like Ukrainians. So crazy. I'm going to go into more detail about it later. I want to take a minute to compare Canada's treatment of Ukrainian refugees versus Canada's treatment of Palestinian refugees. The first headline reads, Immigration Department says 144 Gazans on track to come to Canada after biometric screening. And the second from the following day reads, tens of thousands of Ukrainians expected to come to Canada in the next few months. Going back to the first article, I don't just want to focus on the number disparity. I would also like to focus on the difference between the monetary side of this as well. The 144 people who have made it through most of the application process as of Tuesday will still need to undergo further screening in Egypt, including biometrics before they are granted a visa. And these tests are not cheap. They are $85 per person, which means these people from a war-torn country are going to have to pay an $85 fee to come into Canada. In the Ukrainian article, I couldn't find anywhere mentioning biometric tests. So I did a little bit of research and I found on the Immigration Canada website, it says that Ukrainians are actually exempt from having to pay the biometric fees that Gazans are expected to pay. Now, I am in no way trying to compare the people of Ukraine and the people of Gaza to each other. I am simply trying to compare how Canada is treating these two different refugee groups in comparison to each other. And getting this information wasn't easy. I had to make literal phone calls to get this information.